Hello and welcome to this year's second episode of our MPTV Coaches Show. I'm Ryan Lindley, joined by Eric Myers. Before we get into our coaching interviews, let's take a look at this week's results in Potters athletics. First of all, our boys and girls golf for the Potters. Our boys golf team has played 4 invitationals so far this year, shooting a .327 at Kellogg, a .351 at Bloomington, a .240 at the Raider Cup Challenge, and a .366 at the Cody Creek Invite. The boys have been doing great this year. The Potters had a team score of 168, which was good enough to beat Canton, coming up just a little bit short versus East Peoria. We'll be joined by Potters golf coach Jamie King here in a little bit, where you can pick up a little more information. Eric, how are our girls doing?
Well, similar to our boys. Our ladies have had a good start on the links. Last week, the Lady Potters won their upcoming Eminolina match at home, Pine Lakes. They were led by Reagan Breakers 36 and Avenue Kirk on the 40. Beaten Canyon, but fallen just a little bit behind there to East Peoria, and had an 8th place finish on their way to her 84 there. So not a bad week, but still trying to get through those things.
So let's shift gears a little bit and talk soccer. Last week we had a chance to sit down with Potters soccer coach Tori DeLong, where we discussed the upcoming season and highlighted a few big games that were played last week. Potters did not disappoint. They had a great year, or at least a great opening to the year. They opened with a victory against United Township. They beat U-High. They did fall to the perennial rival Peoria Notre Dame on Saturday, but they're in a good spot. They're going to open up the Middle Illini season against Canton this week, and then they'll host the Morton Invite this Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, so if you guys are out there and don't have anything to do, obviously out of McCallum Park this weekend. Lots of soccer happening out there, so it should be a good one. Our girls volleyball team opened their season last week, getting an opening night win versus Richwoods, but they fell in a hard-fought game Thursday to Normal Community. A very busy week for our girls volleyball program this week, with matches against Tremont and U-High before heading off to the Charger Invite at Centennial High School this Saturday.
Girls tennis had several matches last week against U-High and Metamora. They'll be playing in their Heather Bradshaw Invite hosted by Edwardsville High School this weekend. So long trip down to Edwardsville for girls tennis, but I know they're excited to get down there and show out for Morton High School.
Yeah, it's always a good time, right? So our boys and girls cross country teams this year decided they're going to start their season on Saturday at the Galesburg High School Streaks Invitational. So happy running to them.
Absolutely. And then we'll talk football. We talked to
everybody's favorite sport, right?
Absolutely. We talked to head coach Tim Briley last week, and he said the Muhammad Seymour game was going to be a tough opener, and unfortunately it was for the Potters. They fell 51-14. Jude Hart was 8 for 16 passing for 36 yards. Carl Whitaker led the way in the ground, 3 carries for 77 yards, including a long touchdown run. Blake Shoemaker had 8 tackles, and Jack Stump had 2 sacks. So, I mean, not the result the Potters wanted, obviously, but a few individual performances that went well.
Yeah, sounds like a very tough game. Some of us had the opportunity to make that travel down to Muhammad Seymour, but we watched via the Bulldogs YouTube channel, which is always positive. But just remember, for Potters fans, you can watch on the NFHS network and MPTV. So overall, sounds like it was a tough game down there for the Potters. But so tell us a little bit what went well, what didn't go very well for the Potters.
So I think one thing that went well in the special teams game, Sock Short transitioning from soccer into football, was our starting punter. Had to punt 6 times. Now maybe that's a few more than we would have liked to have seen him out there, but had several over 40 yards. And then obviously we showed some big play potential, right? We mentioned Carl Whitaker, 3 carries for 77 yards. One of those was a 50-plus yard touchdown run. I mean, overall, just trying to clean up mistakes. As a whole, there were a lot of good things, but it seemed like for every good thing there was something that didn't go quite right. And Muhammad, they're a really good team. They're going to make you pay when you make mistakes.
Yeah, earlier in the week we read that their quarterback was one of the top quarterbacks in the state of Illinois. Still hadn't signed with anybody as a senior, but they had that very potent offense. We saw last season in the playoffs. Really tough for that matter, but it was a good game. Hopefully we learn from that. So we got Richwoods coming up this weekend. What's kind of the game plan there Friday night?
Yeah, Richwoods, I mean, talented team again. Much more of a ground and pound type team compared to Muhammad, who wanted to put it up in the air. So we're going to have to be really disciplined defensively. They're going to run a lot of option at us, so our guys can't, break from their assignments, right? Somebody's going to be the dive player, somebody's going to have the quarterback, somebody's going to have the pitch guy, and those guys need to follow through and do their jobs. And if that happens, I think Potters are going to be in good shape.
Yeah, and speaking of Sock Short, we had the ability in our broadcast journalism class to talk to Sox about his transition from soccer to football, and it's kind of cool to hear exactly from the player himself. But so obviously, if you guys don't have anything this weekend, head out to Morton High School to watch Richwoods play Friday night, 7:30 at our stadium there. We're going to be back on here with Coach Jamie King, boys golf coach, as well as Jody Gordon, girls cheerleading coach. Hear more about what they have to say here on the Coaches Show. Thank you.
Welcome back here on our MPTV Coaches Show. Ryan Lindley now joined by Morton head golf coach Jamie King. Jamie, Season has got off to a start. How's it going so far for the guys?
So far, so good. We've got a lot of new guys, who are coming into a new role, right? So we have one senior, and then the rest are guys who are kind of newer to the varsity scene. So there's an adjustment, even though they might be used to the competitive golf feel. That varsity, the varsity level is just a different step up. So we're learning a lot. At certain points, we're kind of taking our lumps here and there, but we're learning some valuable lessons and getting some great experience that will definitely help us moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's always a challenge. You bring in younger guys, like you said, guys who maybe have been in a different role. Who's stepped up into that new role and has had a good year so far for you?
So our lone senior is Will Ellison, and he's off to a really good start. He's put together a couple sub 80 rounds for us, and finished top 10 at the Coyote Creek Invite. And then also him and Jacob Anderson in a team event got first place at a Raider Cup Challenge over in East Peoria. So he's kind of been our leader, both on and off the course. But then guys like Jacob Anderson, who's a sophomore, and then Drake Radloff and Grady Loudermelker, a couple of juniors who are newer to the varsity scene, who have kind of taken a big step up for us this year.
Awesome. Let's go kind of big picture for a second. I mean, golf is such a mental sport, certainly there's some physical skills, which I find myself sometimes trying to master. But it's also just such a mental game because, one bad shot can sink around if you don't kind of keep it together. How do you kind of coach the guys on that side of the game?
Just talking about it a lot, really, and just making it a reality. I talk with Gus Rugard, who's a standout basketball player. I mean, you can airball your first shot, and it really have very little impact on the rest of the game or the rest of your performance. You stand up on the first tee and rip one OB, it can kind of, cause a snowball effect. So it's just about accepting it and then moving on. So we talk a lot about how not letting your last shot affect your next shot. And it's very easy to be said, but it's much tougher to just kind of let that go. And we just say, just flush it, move on. So.
Absolutely. And then kind of on the physical side of it, I think one thing people don't know a lot about is, what do you do in a practice situation? I mean, is it going out and playing rounds? Is it, working on the putting green? Like what does a typical practice look like for you guys?
Yeah, so we try to mix it up. So we have plenty of what we call challenges to where we want to keep it competitive and give a lot of guys as many opportunities to get themselves on the varsity level or the JV level as possible. So on those challenge rounds, you get 3, 4, 5 guys competing for 1 or 2 spots. So trying to become more comfortable in those high pressure situations. Then we also have a lot of, on Fridays, typically, we just have our short game practices. So we spend time on the range and on the putting green, just really trying to dial in our wedges and then our chipping and putting. And then occasionally we'll just have 9-hole, 6-hole practices where we don't let them hit driver, or we start from 175 yards just to try, again, to work on their course management skills and make them kind of think through the golf course a little bit.
Okay, awesome. And then just one last thing here. Looking ahead, what's kind of coming up on the schedule, events that you're excited about, events the kids are excited about? If folks want to get out and watch some Morton High School golf, what should they be looking toward?
Yeah, so the golf season's always a kind of a fast and furious season altogether, but especially at the beginning. So we've gotten a lot of invites under our belt already, so it's kind of conference season now for us, which it's a little bit different this year in terms of we're having triangular events. So there'll be 3 teams out there. But I would say the big event left on our schedule is the Peak and Dragon Classic. And that's a 2-day event it's P-Fest weekend. So I don't know what kind of crowds we can generate there, but it's Friday and Saturday, and that's a really good one because there's like 30 teams that come down and a lot of big schools from the suburbs. So there's usually a lot of really good golf being played out there.
Awesome. Well, big thank you to Coach King for joining us here on our MPTV Coaches Show. We'll be back with Morton High School cheerleading coach Jody Gordon right after this, so stick around. Welcome back here on our MPTV Coaches Show. Ryan Lindley now joined with our MHS head cheerleading coach, Jody Gordon. And Jody, so you're taking over cheerleading program this year. Just kind of talk to me, how exciting is it to take over, coach a team? Obviously, school you teach at, and your daughter's on the team too.
Yeah, she is. It's great. I was nervous taking over the program, but it has been a really smooth transition. The girls have been fantastic. I love the sport of cheerleading. I've been involved with cheer, either competitive coaching or high school coaching for the last 13 years. So it's kind of a natural transition for me to take over this program now and do it. And it's just an added bonus. Yeah, my daughter's on the team. That's fantastic. And there's another one coming up in a few years. So that does add to the fun, but all the girls are kind of like my daughters at this point. So
Yeah, you spent a lot of time together, even in the short time that you've taken over, because obviously this
Yeah.
summer you did a ton of camps and a lot of work, and it was really successful.
yeah, we did have a really great summer. So every summer we traveled to a UCA camp, and this year we went to St. Louis. So we were at a college in St. Louis for 3 days, and it's a pretty intense 12-hour days that we worked together. Um, During the camp experience, we're judged consistently with every routine that we put out. So it's kind of an ongoing awards process for how that works. And we ranked superior and high ratings every time. And then at the end, the kind of number one takeaway, and it's in my classroom right now, and everybody always asks, what is this big blow up yellow banana? And it is. It's literally a blow up inflatable yellow banana. But that is the overall kind of like the best team at the camp takes that home at the end of our time. So they were happy to win that and bring that home. So, and I was too, first year with the program, you want them to feel successful. So, and they did that. So it was a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so just looking ahead through this year, what are some of the things you're excited about, or maybe changes that you want to make, or things of that nature?
Yeah. So we sat down with the senior captains and, Molly, our assistant coach, and kind of talked about what direction we want to take the program. And we're really looking to move to more of a collegiate style of cheerleading. So hopefully, we're in the press box. Hopefully, the parents sitting up here are going to get a view of that this year. You'll see more signs. You'll see more crowd involvement. We have a game plan, kind of mapped out for every game that we do, just to kind of keep everything different and interesting, and focusing on leading the student section and getting the crowd involved as much as possible.
Absolutely. And then one last question to get you out of here. At the end of the year, what would you say your first year has been a success, if, aside from taking home a large blow-up banana?
Yeah, that's not the only thing. I would say first year success would be that we've been able to work with this new style, be organized at every game. I would love for people to notice. After our Cherry and Gray performance, we had a lot of comments about how impressed they were with our routines. So those are kind of separate from our game day. So we put together several routines throughout the year, and those are really complex and they take a lot of time to put together, but we don't have a lot of time. So we do a lot of those very quickly. I would say at the end of the season, if we have the girls finish, and especially my seniors, I tell them all the time, if they end this feeling like they had a fantastic senior year and we were able to do everything that we mapped out goal-wise, then it was a success, right? And we'll just keep building from there.
Awesome. Well, big thanks to Jody Gordon, our MHS cheerleading coach, for joining us. Thank you to Jamie King, our MHS boys golf coach, who joined us earlier in the show. Big thank you to Eric Myers, who opened up the show with me when we went over our weekend recap. And thank you to Coach Myers for his work behind the scenes. He's the one that edited this and put this all together. So a big thumbs up to him on that, and to everybody, our MPTV crew. Thank you, everybody who watched. I'm Ryan Lindley. Join us next week as we continue to go behind the scenes with our MPTV Coaches Show.